Hey there, entrepreneur. Welcome to today's show. I am joined today by Laura Spaulding, who is the CEO and founder of Spaulding Decon, the leading decontamination company in the US. She's been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Inc. Mag, Entrepreneur Mag, and she's become a featured expert in growing a dirty business, which I freaking love. In 2020, she grew the company by 608%. Which is incredible. And that made her make the Inc. 5000 list at number 768. She's got all sorts of accolades. She's got a massive following online too. And she's got a podcast that she's going to probably talk to us about as well. I can't wait for you to hear her story. So Laura, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Michelle.
All right. Well, let's start off. I think I was telling you before, you're a little bit of a poster child when it comes to adversity and like making it through some shit. So take us back to that kind of introduction into the military and your start of your journey there.
Yeah. So I had not a great upbringing when I was younger, and I knew I needed to kind of find my own way to be able to survive. So with no money and no help and no support, really the only avenue that I had was to go into the military. So right after high school, I went to the local community college that I was able to kind of pay for. The semesters I remember were like $350 back then,
Yeah.
and back then that was a lot of money. So I was able to do my 2 years there, and then I was kind of at a standstill because I knew I couldn't afford university, and so my only option was to go into the military. So I enlisted into the Army, and that was in 1994. And I got orders to go to Fort McClellan, Alabama. And this was, 1994 was a year after Bill Clinton passed the "Don't Ask, Don't Tell" policy, which is, now non-existent. But essentially, what it was just, let these soldiers serve in the military. It's a volunteer army, and live and let live.
Right.
Well, unfortunately, some people were not happy with that in the upper brass of the military, and I went through boot camp, and then we were in advanced training, and with the same people. Essentially, we didn't move to another place, and all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, there was a male voice over the loudspeaker that were just calling in female soldiers one by one, and we were all like, what is going on here? And when they would come back like an hour later, 30 minutes later, they would just have this look on their face of horror. And so it was my turn to be called, and I had no idea what I was going into. And so I get in there, and the first thing he asked me was, who do you think is gay? And I was like, oh my God, like, I knew he wasn't supposed to ask me that, but here's the way he was going around it. Don't ask, don't tell means he can't ask me. But he didn't ask me. He asked me who I thought was gay. And that's how he was trying to get around it. And, I was furious, to say the least. And, obviously didn't say anything, and then went back. And at the end of the day, there was, I guess, the moral majority had said, well, if we had to guess, mind you, he's intimidating these young women who are still very vulnerable in this, boot camp scenario. And there was 3 of us that got identified, and so they put us up on charges for homosexuality, and they were trying to discharge us. And at that point, I was estranged from my parents, and they didn't even know I was in the military. And my friends were in the service, were pressuring me to call my parents to try to get an attorney, because you get a military appointed attorney. So I was very reluctant, and not surprised at the outcome. But I ended up calling my mother, and I'm like, hey, I'm in the Army. And she's like, oh, one of those things. And I said, I kind of need a favor. They are charging me with being gay, and I need a lawyer. And she says, well, are you? And I was like, well, yeah. And she's like, then you deserve it, and hung up the phone. So, I wasn't surprised. My friends were, but I was not. And So that was just kind of the beginning of a long journey of adversity. And to say it got better, it didn't. It just got more challenging, and you just figure out how to be, more resilient.
Right. Right. I mean, I think the fact that you just weren't surprised by that,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
goes to show like how deep your kind of resilience muscles run
Mhm.
within your body. I think, that you were kind of came out of the womb that way, right? When you're not surprised by that. It,
Yeah, not at all. I grew up knowing that I was on my own. There was nobody coming to save me. There was no lifeline. There was no, better future ahead of me. There was nothing. If I was going to make it to the other side, it would have to be through my own doing. And to say that, I got punched in the face every which direction I went, uh, looking back on it, it's just I still am surprised myself at how much I got back up.
yeah,
Because it's so easy to just stay down. It
it
really
is.
is.
Yeah. No, it really is. And I mean, and for you, so you moved through to the discharge and all that stuff, right? So take us through like what your steps were after that, because that is a very difficult thing to overcome in itself, right? It's almost like a scarlet letter to some
Well,
extent.
it absolutely is, and it's that's stamped on your discharge papers, and I had nowhere to go. I was homeless. So there's three of us that got discharged, and one of the other girls said, "Well, you can come with me with my family to Michigan." And I'm like, "Oh God, I've never even been to Michigan."
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, I have nowhere else to go." So I went, and her family was nice enough to kind of house us until we figured out what the hell are we going to do at this point.
Yeah.
And before I left the military, my court appointed lawyer told me, because I was very concerned about this scarlet letter on my
Yeah.
paperwork, and he said, don't tell anyone you were ever in the military. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, they'll never figure it out, don't even bother telling them. And I'm like, wow, okay. And I remember filling out an application with the Atlanta Police Department, and I didn't feel right about lying about it. So I put that I was in the military on there, and I was denied the job. And then the next department that I applied for, I did not put that I was in the military, and I got the job.
Jesus.
So that tells you right there that discrimination is alive and well,
Yeah.
and it was going to follow me wherever I went.
Yeah. No, I mean, so how did you overcome that? Because I know you ended up in law enforcement. So how did you move through into that?
I told them that I was never in the military,
Yeah.
and that's
And
how I got hired.
that's insane. All right. So move us through, because it's an interesting journey between law enforcement to what you're doing today, friend. So
Yeah,
so
yeah,
tell us a little
yeah.
bit about that.
So, I applied to a bunch of different departments. Kansas City was the first one to hire me. I did not want to live there, but it was the only place, and I needed a job.
Yeah.
So, moved over to the Midwest, and I hated everything about it except my job. It's just
Right.
not
The
the right
vibe.
lifestyle for me, that vibe. And
Yeah.
being from Florida, there's no beach, there's nothing, there's
Yeah.
it's different. So I learned a lot though, and I had a good time work wise, but then it was so uneventful when you're not at work that I was literally working like 70, 80 hours a week because I was picking up off duty shifts and working there. So I did that for about 7 years, and that's how I got the idea to start a crime scene cleaning company.
It's so crazy. Like,
Well, it was,
it makes
it was
sense, but
several, yeah, but it was several things that kind of occurred, not one event. It was certainly several small events that were lack of promotion, making $42,000 a year, putting your life at risk. It just wasn't worth it.
insane.
It's a boys club. It's a glass ceiling like nobody's business, and there's just you're on a hamster wheel. You're going nowhere.
Yeah.
Um, so I knew that I needed to do something, and I was so sick of the being judged by a piece of paper. Your resume. I had no transferable skills other than
Right.
law enforcement. What do you say? Hey, I'd like a sales job because I've sold a lot of crack before, you know, as an
Yeah.
undercover person. Like,
Yeah.
they're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
wasn't getting anything. And I was like, you know what? I just need to start my own business, but I have no money. And that's where the next hurdle came. And I decided, after one night, I was at a homicide, and the mother of the son that was murdered uh, was very candid and said, "Hey, when are you guys coming back to clean?" And I was like, "No, we don't do that." And she's like, "Well, then who does?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "You know what? That's a great question." So I just started out on this fact finding mission, asking homicide detectives, CSI, other officers, and like, "Hey, who cleans this up?" And everybody was like, "We don't know and we don't care." And I'm like, it was a light bulb moment. And I thought I could fill that void and perhaps do something that was rewarding for me. So it started out being a side hustle. And the department initially said, yeah, whatever, do your side hustle and have a nice life. Then 2 months later, they said, oh, by the way, we changed our mind. Here's the ultimatum. It's either your job or the business. And at that time, it was only like two
Yeah.
or 3 months old. I maybe had
Wow.
2 jobs at the time under my belt.
Yeah.
I said, I quit. I'm miserable.
Nice.
I quit and I'm done. And I literally packed up my bags and I thought, if I'm not strapped to this job, I'm going to go back to Florida and get the hell out of this Midwest. So
Yeah.
that's exactly what I did. And I packed my bags, rented my house out, and moved to Florida. And it grew faster than I ever thought it would.
Yeah. I mean, that story that you just told about like the mother being like, who cleans this up? Like she didn't have enough to fucking deal with
Yeah,
at that point,
exactly.
right? Without, and that kind of like, oh, not our job, mentality. I think the void that you're filling, like people don't think about
No,
that, right? And that is where entrepreneurs like do their best work, or in those like little cracks of places that people don't even fucking think of.
right.
Um, so you moved back to Florida, and talk to us about your first loan, about getting the funding.
Yeah. So when I decided that I was going to do crime scene cleaning, I found a school that was in the Dallas, Texas area. It's no longer there anymore. And I called him up and I said, "Hey, I want to learn how to do this." And he said, "It's $2,500. It's a whole week." And literally, that's all I had in my savings account was $2,500. And I thought, "Fuck it, I'm just going to take a chance on myself."
Yeah.
And I took my only week of vacation, the last savings that I had, and I went to this training school. And sitting next to me was a guy who's still a friend named Bill, and he was a nurse. And he was telling me that he had literally walked into his bank and got an SBA loan for like $150,000. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, wow, naive, thinking that's how
Yeah.
you get the money.
Yeah.
So we became pretty good friends. He literally gave me his business plan
Nice.
that he used. Literally, I just changed my name and my address, and that was it. And I walk into a bank thinking this is easy.
Yeah.
And 4 banks later, they all said no, 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 no. I called him and I said, "What am I doing wrong?" And he was perplexed. And he said, "I have no idea." He's like, "I literally gave you what I did." And then it was like a light bulb
Oh,
moment again. Oh, I know exactly what's going on. I know exactly what's going on. So
yep.
I sit there kind of down in the dumps and I'm racking my brain thinking, what do I do? What do I do? How am I going to finance starting this business? And I thought, I'll take a home equity loan and I'll tell them I need new windows. So I went to a fifth bank, happened to be US Bank. And I said, I need new windows for my house. I had my check within
Of
days
course you
for
do.
$15,000. And of course, I never got new windows. I I bought a trailer, some basic equipment, and I was off to the road. But I still had a big mountain to climb.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Because
Yeah.
not only did you start the business, you franchised the hell out of that business and flipped it into a really interesting business model. So tell us how you actually got from point A to point B on that, because that is a shit ton of work that you did.
It was. Again, sometimes being naive is a good trait,
Yeah.
because you don't realize the shit that you just stepped in, and that, you know, what you're going to do to get there.
Yeah.
So 2005, I started the company. 2006, moved to Florida, and then I was just kind of growing it. I started hiring employees once I got to Florida, and then we were just doing better and better every single year. But I was, you know, all my growth was pretty organic, by, you know, guerrilla marketing essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in 2012, we were still coming out of the crisis, and the financial crisis, and my lawyer said, you know, you should consider franchising this business. And I was like, oh, I don't know
Yeah.
anything about
How the hell do I do
franchising.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to start. And he's like, you need to look into it. He's like, you've got the processes already. You just teach other people to do what you did. I blew him off. Well, he's because I was like, I have no idea.
That's overwhelming a little
Yeah,
bit. Yeah.
yeah, very. And then in 2014, he said it again. And I was like, all right, I'll look into it. So I started looking into it, not nearly the depth that you should have, to do something like an undertaking like this.
Yeah.
And you know, contacted a franchise consultant, and like, you know, hey, how do you do this? What do you do? And I was in before I was really like making a decision,
Crazy.
essentially. And then once I was in, I was like, holy shit, what did I just do? You know, I
It's
was
a
like,
major thing. Yeah.
oh my God, like this is overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it was very, you know, started very small. I was doing the selling of the franchise territories and the training alone until I could afford to hire
Yeah.
people. And I was looking for people that were like me, that basically came from nothing and just needed a chance to
Right.
survive. And
Right.
I felt like I wanted to give somebody that opportunity, because I was able to make it. And that's not who I was getting, though.
Right. Right. I'm
That's not
sure.
who I was getting. Yeah, no, I was getting people that had, you know, more money than I ever even dreamed of.
Wow. Wow. So, I mean, was there a point when you said, okay, fine, we'll change the criteria people were looking for, or did you kind of still you had to, I would assume at some point, right? Like to kind of flex that a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the beginning mistakes that I made was the consulting firm that I hired to get started gave me literally no education and no idea on how do you find the right fit? How do you vet
Yeah.
these people? How do you know who's going to be a good performer? And nobody gave me any of that. So I had to learn by making tons of
Oh, I'm
mistakes. And
sure.
I made a lot of mistakes. I got a lot of people into the franchise business that shouldn't have been in it. It should have never been in it. You know, they were basically looking for a job.
Yeah. Yeah. And we all know in the entrepreneur world, those are two very different things,
Very, very
right?
different
Like,
things. Yes.
yikes. Yikes. I mean, how did you actually, I mean, this is just a general question for you through all of this. I mean, what the hell kept you going with all this? Like this is a lot, and we're not even to like
I
the
know.
present day yet, folks.
Um, I'll tell you, once I realized what franchising really was, which took like a year,
Yeah.
um, I realized maybe this isn't for me. This is far too. There's too many problems with the business model of
Right.
franchising itself.
Yeah.
There's a lot of loopholes. There's a lot of gotchas
Yep. Yep.
that I wasn't comfortable with. But unfortunately, once you're in it, it's something you can't get out of.
Really
Yeah,
interesting.
because you have a contract with
Yeah.
franchisees and you owe them
Right.
that. And I wanted to make sure that everybody was successful. So it was one of those things where I just kind of like, okay, I've got to suck this up. It's not. I made a mistake, but I made the mistake.
Right.
It's my own doing, and I'm going to make the best out of it. And here we are.
I know. How
Here
many
we are.
franchises later? How many
Oh my
things?
God.
Like 50 something, like 53, 58, something like that.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah, it's like 50 something, and that's not including all the bad mistakes that we made that we had to get rid of.
Right. Right. That is
So that's another
insanity.
20 right there.
Yeah, that's insanity. I mean,
Oh yeah.
just mentally,
Oh
mentally,
yeah.
how do you keep moving forward? I mean, you've obviously
Eh,
learned some tricks over the years to keep yourself moving forward, or we wouldn't be talking right now.
I just keep thinking, I read a lot and I learn a lot from other entrepreneurs' experiences.
Yeah.
Even if they're not like my own, I can learn something from them. And I have definitely learned that what I'm doing right now in franchising is happening for me, not to me.
Yeah.
And there's a greater reason for it. And if I can impact these franchisees' lives and help them get to meet their financial goals or their lifestyle goals, then it's worth it. But it comes at a price. It does come at a price. It's very, very stressful, and it's a 24/7 job because you're helping multiple owners with different sets of skills
Yeah.
achieve each of their goals. And that's one thing that I was naive about as well. You would think that, okay, somebody with the desire to be in this type of business that has a great sense of empathy and that has the financial wherewithal to get into this business is going to be focused and driven. And that's not the case at all.
Yeah. I mean,
That
how
I
can you
was
step
very
into that?
disappointed.
How can you
I
step into that big of an
Yeah.
undertaking, man, and not be
Well, many
focused?
franchisees have a mindset of, I'm buying a franchise and I want literally everything done for me.
Oh, they want it all
And
handed. The processes,
yeah,
the
they want
procedures,
everything
all
hand,
that stuff. Yeah.
which is fine
Yeah.
because that you're buying that, but it's more than that. Obviously, every franchise you buy, you're going to get processes and systems and
Yeah.
procedures,
Yeah.
but they literally want you to do everything for them. They want you to hire for them, fire for them, do the jobs for them,
Yeah.
do their social media, do their marketing, like do everything for them. And that's a misnomer. That's not
Yeah.
what a franchise is. A franchise is basically, I'm giving you a 15-year head start to succeed, and I'm
Yeah.
giving you everything. And I have an entire support staff that's here for you. I wish I would have had that. I would
Yeah.
have saved so much money.
Yeah.
But the mentality that they have is that's not enough. They want more and
Interesting.
more and more. And it's honestly, the business model itself is, it's supposed to be symbiotic,
Yeah.
but it doesn't feel that way. It feels more competitive or an alliance.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and with 50 plus whatever, branches that you're supporting, like that is, and again, like just the personalities alone, I would think
Exactly.
is like quadruple a full-time job, right? Just to kind of manage the different personalities and the learning styles
Yep.
and, all of that stuff, which I think to your point, people don't think of that. You don't think of that when you go through like a Dunkin' Donuts drive-through or Starbucks or whatnot, like what went into actually getting that off the ground or whoever owns,
Right.
um,
Right.
and then taking pride as an owner. I've always thought of franchises as a really interesting. I'm glad we're having this conversation because I've always looked at them as like really interesting. Like if I own a franchise, like it's not me, it's the brand. Right. So like there's a really interesting distinction between that where I'm assuming, like you said, a certain kind of entrepreneur has to step into that because a lot of entrepreneurs come in with an extension of themselves with a business and it's not
And that's
necessarily that.
okay
Yeah.
because when, if you're running a Dunkin' Donuts, it's obviously the brand. The owner is not the one taking your money at the cashier
Right.
section. But with our brand, you're literally, the owner is the one that's meeting with these people in the
Yeah.
worst times of their lives.
Yeah.
So there is a connection there between the owner and their community.
Yeah.
So the brand helps them, supports them, and gets them out there. But it's up to them, the franchisees, to make that individual connection.
Yeah. And that level, like you said, empathy has to
Yes.
be there. You must, I would assume you look for very high, like EI
Yeah.
in a franchise owner for this,
Yeah.
because it's like you said, it's a specialized little area of life that if you step
Yeah.
into it, you can't just be selling. right?
Right.
It's not
Right.
like, it's not really that kind of a game.
No,
So
it's
then
not.
tell us how you flipped it, how you flipped into the real estate area of things, because that's like, again, this is just another kind of rebirth that you did with
Yeah.
your company, which is amazing.
It was another light bulb moment for me. So I've always been interested in real estate, and I never thought that it was something that I could get into because I never had any money.
Right.
And when you're always coming from the mentality of poverty, you don't you see those things as unattainable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was, constantly reading books about real estate and how do I do this, and all these people, no money down and all this stuff. And I'm like, there's no way. So one day I was at a hoarder's house for an estimate, and it was one of the worst that I've seen. She was a severe alcoholic, and when I walked in, it was full of spoiled food and trash and empty liters of vodka everywhere. Like it was a mountain of vodka.
Wow.
And she was in there, and there was thousands and thousands of roaches and spiders,
Oh,
and
hell no. Oh, damn.
it smelled like a hot dumpster in
Yeah.
there. And her mother was in there with her, and the reason that they called was because this was a condo and the HOA was fed up, and they were like, get out or clean this up, but we're gonna start fining you.
Yeah.
So her mother stepped in and was like, okay, how much is it going to be to clean this up? And she said to me, I just need you to clean this up so we can sell it. And it was just one of those things where, without thinking, I said, well, I would be interested in buying it. And she's like, you would? Like, her eyes got huge.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, for how much? And I was like, well, you caught
I
me
don't
off
know.
guard there.
Give me a
I
hot
said,
second.
I got to run some comps. And I said, I'll let you know. And I said, but what I'll do is I'll give you a quote for the cleanup, and then I'll give you an offer to buy the place. And so I go back and I'm running comps and stuff. And I'm like, I came up with my offer of $5,000. And I was like, there's no way she's going to take this. And I'm like, oh, well, I'll still clean it up for her or whatever. So I went over there and I was like, listen, here's your offer. And I said, don't feel insulted. The offer is what it is, because I literally have to take this place down to the studs. It's that bad.
Yeah.
And she looked at it and she goes, when do you want to close?
Holy shit.
I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I was like, 2 weeks work for you? And she's like, yep. So that was it. That was my first one. And I bought it for $5,000, and I put 18,500 into it for the rehab, and I sold it for 65,000.
Holy shit.
And
Wow.
I was like, okay, let me do some more of these, perfect the process, and then I'm going to put it out to our franchise system.
Yeah.
And it has been one of the biggest wealth growers in our system, and it makes us the only one in the world that does what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, real estate's where it's at. If I had $1 for like every entrepreneur that has had on the show or talked to that talks about that, like that is like such a wealth builder and such a driver and just a life changer, because
Absolutely.
what you just accomplished is exactly what you said you didn't even think would ever fucking happen.
Yeah.
Like, and you were like, oh, here's $5,000. Like, who would have even thought that somebody would be like, sure, whatever. But people in those positions, they just want out, right?
They do. Wow. And she was, she had to get out. And her mom's probably like, why the fuck am I going to pay for her to clean it when I can just get rid of it now, and it's not our problem anymore? So when I bought it, I went over to the HOA and I said, okay, your problem's gone. And I said, but you need to give me about a month and a half to rehab this unit. And he was like, no problem. Like, they were so accommodating and everything. And I had to bomb the shit out of it to get all the freaking roaches, and tore it down to nothing. The plumbing didn't work, the toilet. I mean, it was a full rehab.
Yeah. Yeah. But sounds like a great investment.
Yeah,
though.
it was.
But I think like in their bio, like the dirty job, like somebody's got to do it, and somebody is going to make money from it.
Oh yeah.
Because it's not there. Those kinds of dirty jobs aren't going anywhere. Right. They're always going to be there. And I think if you're brave enough to step into it, you live a completely different life now than you probably did 20 years ago, I bet. Right.
Absolutely. Yes.
So what do you think your next steps are going to be? Where do you see yourself maybe like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever in the future?
Oh, wow. God, I don't know. I'm working on my book right now.
Nice. Good.
And that has been, like childbirth,
It is. Yeah.
it's difficult, and it's stuff you're writing about, stuff that you don't think about every day, and
Yeah.
for good reason.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
I'm going to do that. We're working on, a reality TV show with a bunch of,
Awesome.
networks from California. So it could go so many different directions. Right now, we're building our new headquarters building so we can have proper training facility and all that. So
Nice.
that should be done here in a few months. So, God, 5 to 10 years, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that's great. I like your answer
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
think like every step of the way you've told us about like, you're just kind of an opportunist, right? Like you're out,
yeah.
you're just looking at things like, well, here's this opportunity. Now here's this. And it seems like they're just kind of flowing at you if you're open to looking for them. Right.
Well, and that's the thing is I've always felt like, you know, uh, the kid that's trying to find the coins on the ground
Yeah.
and make something happen with essentially the trash, because everybody else that had all these opportunities and these great Ivy League educations and stuff, they're starting out miles and miles ahead of me, and I'm just trying to pick up crumbs and make them turn into something else.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seems like you did a fucking great job at that front.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean,
Yeah.
not many people can tell the story you did. And I think, the book, the TV, your online following, like, it's because people connect to you. They can
Yeah.
see themselves in you, I think sometimes a lot more than those people who, and again, nothing wrong going to an Ivy League school. High five, folks.
No.
But,
Yeah.
my mom cleaned houses, like,
Yep.
I came from an interesting background as well. And it's just, it's different. It's different when you can connect on that level. And then when you become a CEO, you understand all
Hmm.
the rungs. Like I imagine you understand every single role that's being done at your company right now, right?
Hmm. I've done it all. Yeah. So I'll never be one of those people that, I have no idea who people are in my company or what they do. It's
Yeah.
because I was doing it all. And then when I got to the point where I could pay somebody that was much better than I was at doing it, that's when I knew that, I was going somewhere. Because if I was able to pay somebody that knew how to do a website or how to do advertising or whatever, um, I knew that I had the right trajectory ahead of me.
Yeah. Yeah. You made the decision to stay in your lane and surround
Right.
yourself with really smart people,
Oh, absolutely.
that in itself is valuable advice, folks. Like if you can, just because you can doesn't mean you should,
Yeah.
especially when you're running a company or scaling a company, right? Any last kind of tidbits that you want to leave for folks? I mean, you are just like a wealth of knowledge when it comes to adversity and overcoming. I mean, any last kind of bits that you think would be helpful for folks to hear?
Yeah, I mean, if you're starting from nothing like I did, you're going to get told no 100 times before you ever hear the word yes. And you have to have the resiliency to be able to take those punches and hear those no's every single day, knowing that you'll eventually hear the yes. And what's sad is that most people in our lives, instead of saying, keep at it, you're going to make it, just keep going, they're not, they're like, just forget this, go get a job, or
Yeah.
um go do this, or I can't believe you're not doing this. And it's unfortunate, because those are the people that are supposed to love us and care about us, and they're putting their own projections of
That's
fear
fear.
of failure. And I had no fear of failure because I was already a failure. So I couldn't go down anymore. And that is a position that, I would rather start out now, looking back on it at my age, I would rather start out from a point of poverty than a point of everything being handed to me.
Yeah.
Because what I've noticed is that wealthy people are pretty weak. They really are. They're not resilient. They get thrown a curveball or two, and they just freaking lose it.
Yeah.
They lose it. So we come from a better spot because we're scrappers. We know how to figure it out and overcome and live through these things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm a big believer of the more shit you go through, the better you are at handling it. Right. Like I think
Yeah.
when the pandemic hit, I had two kids, they came home, shit hit the fan with everybody, all that
Yeah.
stuff. And, and I always joke that my family, because we've been through so much, the pandemic hit and we were like, another fucking thing.
Exactly.
Like, you know, and I'm not saying that to trivialize it, but I'm just saying like,
Right.
because it was, I think
It
if you
was.
expect life to just always be butterflies and rainbows, then it hits you harder too. So you have to know that the negative is going to come. There are going to be shitty situations. And then you also have to have the faith in yourself that you'll actually get through, which it sounds like you did. You had the faith in yourself to say, I know I'm going to do this.
Yeah, and it's hard because when you're the only one that has the faith in yourself, it's
Yeah.
really difficult to do that. But you know, nothing good comes out of comfort. You've got this stuff has got to go to shit for you to be able to pick it up and build it. You're not going to learn anything in comfort. You're really not. It's you've got to face these problems head on, and there's always a way out. There always is, but you just have to figure out what that way is.
Yeah, everything's figure outable kind of thing. Marie Forleo, that like that's what she always
Yeah.
says. And I tell my kids that, and you know, it may not be exactly what you want as a solve, but there always is one.
Yep.
Right. It just may not be, to your point, comfortable to move
Absolutely.
through it. Right.
Yeah.
Well, tell people where they can find your company, or any social links or anything that you want to spread so they can come track you down.
Yeah, so we have a great show on YouTube under Crime Scene Cleaning. We're also on TikTok and Instagram on Crime Scene Cleaning. If you have a strong stomach, it's for you. But it's very educational. So we teach people kind of the type of scenes that we go to, how we clean them, the people, the persons behind the suits, you know, and how they deal with this stuff every day. So it's been fun. We're almost at 1 million subscribers on YouTube, so it's blowing up like crazy.
Damn, I like the fact that you said the people behind it too, because you have to be a certain personality and a certain like person okay with seeing tragedy to be able to deal with that, I would assume.
Absolutely. It's rough.
Wow. Wow. Well, this has been freaking amazing. Thank you very much for joining me, Laura.
Thank you for having me, Michelle.